This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk about domestication, conscious individuality, freedom, and the common good. I have no idea how many of us think about ourselves as domesticated animals, but that's exactly what we are. We are domesticated because we are cultural animals. We are domesticated by our culture, and by domestication I mean that our natural behavior, quote unquote, is transformed by culture, by everything that has to do with culture, the ideas, the belief systems, the values, the norms, everything. And by everything I mean literally everything: economics, politics, arts, science, and everything else that is culture, that is part of the cultural system that makes us who we are. So we do not exist as natural animals. We can only exist as domesticated animals, domesticated by our culture, by the phenomenon that allows us, the natural conditions of our species, the intrinsic conditions of our species that allows us to produce culture, are the same that transforms us into domesticated animals. We don't exist in the natural status. So I would describe us as sociocultural domesticated animals with a conscious individuality, with being conscious of our individuality and enjoying the freedoms that an individual beings can enjoy. But we also depend on the collective good. The collective good, or the common good, is not an abstract idea. It is essential for a social species that is profoundly dependent, that we profoundly depend on each other, not only with our relatives, as we are supposed to believe in the hierarchical society, in this caste-based society, that we should only depend on our relatives. It is the family-based society arrangements that, with the hereditary rights, that are supposed to strengthen the ties, the family ties. But the essence of the common good is actually the really survival strategy that doesn't need to be conscious, but it is part of the evolution of the species, that the human communities they need to be cohesive, to be resilient. The common good was not a luxury, it was essential, crucial for the survival of the group, especially that we evolved in small groups, in small tribes, and it was important to keep that unity. So that's why there was this idea of the pursuit of the self-interest, this capitalistic idea, this class caste based idea. It's not possible. It's only possible in these complex systems where we create institutions and legal systems to support them. Otherwise, they would not possible. It would not be possible to sustain them. They are sustained artificially, not organically. That's exactly the problem, that we don't understand ourselves in an organic form. What does it mean? Community, really human community. What is the survival? How important is the common good for the survival, but also for a functional society, a society that really functions organically. And by organically, I mean with as little as possible coercive instruments, because we don't need people are driven by the need to cooperate, the feeling, the cultural. There's a culture that domesticates us to cooperate for the common good, as well as we are building individual freedoms and being able to build meaning, to have meaningful lives without the need to be coerced into performing tasks and jobs based on manufactured scarcity. Why should we live in a system that is designed for the survival of the meanest? It's not for the survival of the fittest. Okay, it's the meanest. We know social Darwinism is just is incorrect. Is even a lie. Okay, it's not how human societies function. Not even how natural systems and natural selection functions. But even so, it's not about the survival of the fittest. It is the survival of the meanest, and that's why, if we understand this, there are many reasons, but this is one of them. If we understand ourselves as domesticated animals, that we are domesticated by our cultures, but also, of course, our societies are organized. So it would be easier for us to understand that we can be domesticated for many different purposes, which means that the process of domestication that we go through since we are born, it could be for to become for a culture of liberation, what I call a culture of true liberation, which means that we would be more conscious of that process, that we are going through a process of domestication. Okay, that includes indoctrination and instrumentalization and everything else that the education is about. And since we were more conscious of that process, we would be more aware of the need to have a culture that is true liberating and for a meaningful life. And by culture, again, I emphasize that when I talk about culture, I do talk about everything, which means I'm not talking about culture in the sense of the cultural productions, whatever, that when people think about culture, art and literature and poetry and all that. No, I'm talking about everything, because if we understand economics and politics as part of the cultural process, we do understand it is easier for us to see through the manipulation, how we are not victims. I don't want to, we are victims actually, but how we are manipulated into becoming we go through a certain model and paradigm of domestication that transforms us into tools to perform tasks and to fulfill roles and function in a certain way for a certain purpose that is dictated by others. And who are the others? The others are obviously those at the top of the hierarchy, of the pyramid, of the social pyramid, the ones that control the wealth and power and concentrate power. So this is exactly what one of the reasons why class and caste societal based systems is one format. It has been the dominant form of organizing a society, and therefore we assume this paradigm, this civilizational, this imperialistic civilizational paradigm, and this capitalistic order, economic and political order, as the default paradigm that somehow represents the human condition. It is a representation of the human condition. So this is exactly the reason why, if we see that we should have if we understand that we should have a different system, we also need to understand that to perceive us as domesticated animals, that we have been generation after generation for centuries, if not millennia, of course in certain cases for millennia, domesticated to become to function in this way. Okay, that's the purpose of domestication. When we domesticate an animal, the purpose of the domestication is to transform the animal into that the animal functions in a certain way. Whether we want the animal as a pet, or if we want the animal as to help or to perform certain tasks, we train the animal for that. The process of domesticating the animal is to transform the animal into a tool, okay, into that it will serve a purpose, and that's exactly what happens with us. We just and we can live all our lives without being conscious of this process, of this reality, process and reality, and we can believe in all the fantasies about freedom and democracy and liberal values and even progressive values and nonetheless we are just our actions, our behaviors, and our thoughts are under control exactly of the dominant narratives, the principles, the norms, the values that shape our behavior and shape our individual consciousness. We have this. We are this conscious. We enjoy this conscious individuality, but this conscious individual, this is what makes us able to be conscious of ourselves and to have conscious thought. But nonetheless, it doesn't mean that we are free animals, that we enjoy freedom of thought, freedom of reasoning, because that's not the case. Our subconscious mind operates, functions, uses what they have, what is dominant. That's why if we are born in different societies and cultures and civilizations, we behave differently. Of course, we all share certain features. The human behavior shares universal features. It is innate to the species. But then how we operate, how we function as social and cultural animals depends on the kind of domestication we went through to function in a certain way. How do we become this or that in life? How do we function in society? It's not even about the profession. It's about how we perform our tasks as part of the society, how we fit in a role. Because the professional role is one thing, and the how we feel ourselves as part of the society, and how we feel and how we perceive ourselves as part of the society is another. And it has to do with that process of domestication that makes us feel and think about ourselves in a certain way, and makes us follow our thoughts, our behaviors follow certain patterns, and those patterns are acquired. They are not innate. They might differ from one to another due to our personality and the temperament traits, but other than that, that's how we function. And we believe many times that we are being authentic, in the sense that we are being genuine. It is us, but it is mainly that we are reproducing a behavior or a position, a political position, or other position, are stating a certain view that it is not exactly ours. So we always need to understand our identity as part of that process as domesticated animals, that the more that we need to understand the deeper and wider and more comprehensively we understand it, the better is the knowledge of ourselves and the limits of ourselves, the limits of our comprehension of reality, and the limits of our freedoms, and how it is important to have a society where the common good is important. Because if we only operate in this, in the modus operandi is the pursuit of self-interest, we are all condemned to be uh, uh, to compete for less and less, because competition, when it comes to the lower classes, it becomes very, we become losers. You know, we are competing with each other when we should be cooperating with each other for the common good. And we are functioning in a way that only helps those who exploit us. And we have not to be afraid of words. It is exploitation. And the time, and one thing that we should really be aware is that the only thing we really own is our lives. Or we should own our lives, our time, the units of time. And the way we spend it, doing what kind of relations, what kind of meaning, with what kind of meaning, and what's the purpose of life. And the more we compete for the pursuit of self-interest, it might give us a feeling of accomplishment. I'm not going to deny it, but it is endless, even at the higher level, at the higher escalons. It is a relentless process, because as if we individually, or the corporations or organizations, can never feel safe. It is required to grow perpetually and incrementally in order to outcompete the adversaries. And this is not the way we should live, because it was not the way we could survive throughout hundreds of thousands of years. It would be impossible. And now we assume it as inherent part of the human condition, instead of refusing to accept it. And why do we do it? Because we, as domesticated creatures, we have been domesticated to perform tasks and to think and perceive reality in a certain way that makes this reality where we live the default reality. You know, the idea of there is no alternative, Tina, which means that it has to be like this because of our condition. The features of our condition do not allow us to be to cooperate or to become to build different societies and civilizations. But that's not true. We can do it. That's for sure that we can do it. But of course, in order to do it, we need to become conscious of the beliefs, of the structure of the cultural and social structure that transforms us into that instrumentalizes us to function in certain ways that we then assume as natural, as part of our nature, part of our condition. Because we have this neural plasticity and behavioral plasticity and cultural adaptability to do it. We do have it. But that's why we can also build different systems. This is not about wiping out our belief systems we don't need the ideas of Ian Cameron, one of the psychiatrists involved in the MK Ultra operation, out of the McGill University in Canada. It's not. We don't need any clean slate. Okay, what we need. That's I talk because this is so important. We never get rid of the ideas and belief systems that we have acquired. Okay, that they have. If you, I give you the example. All of us learn a native language. Many of us, and especially in older times, we'd only learn one single language. And that process would be involuntary. It would not depend on our will, okay? As many things that we learn, they don't have nothing to do with our will, okay? We just learn them, and by mimicry and by repetition, because we are exposed to that knowledge, to that experience. So it just becomes part of us, part of who we are, by being exposed to it. And even if you want to get rid of your language, your native language, the language that you learned in your young age, since you were exposed since you were born, and maybe even before, I don't know. You can't. Okay? You just can't. If you go to live in another country where you learn another language, and your native language, the first language, the mother tongue or whatever you call it, that you first learn by being exposed to it, it doesn't go away. It just becomes less relevant. You might even forget some words. You might even, if you don't use it at all, for years and years, you might even not, you don't even remember, okay? But it's still there. The process is that just because you are exposed to a new reality with a different language system, with different symbols, okay? You just that one just becomes more relevant, becomes dominant, because that's the one you use. You train yourself, and you are exposed to it. That's why you don't need to get rid of the old, of your native language. You just learn this new language, and it becomes dominant because it's the one you use in a daily basis. Okay? So everything you are exposed in your societal experience, environment, it's in that symbolic language. Therefore, that's what you become. That's what becomes dominant. The reality that becomes dominant is the same with any ideological system, where the narratives and the framing, that it's the same with religion, with political beliefs, with economic ideas, with everything. So it's the idea about yourself, the idea you have about yourself, how you perceive yourself, is also it's also based on these dominant ideas and narratives that dominant at the subconscious level. But they are also dominant because you practice them. They are being reinforced in a daily basis. So the only way that we fight the dominant ideas, the dominant perception and narratives that are the ones that really have an impact on how we perceive us, how we perceive reality, how we build relations and everything else. The only way to do it is just to train, to go through a conscious process of transformation, which means that we expose ourselves to other realities. And by realities, I'm talking about value systems, belief systems, ideas, different. And if we think there is something important there, we have to train ourselves. We have to go that process of conscious transformation, that you consciously train yourself, educate yourself to build a new identity, and to not because you will get rid of the old identity, but because the new identity will become more relevant, will become the dominant one. This is how human beings work. This is how our minds work. We don't get rid of old ideas. We just become to understand that they were wrong, or they were inaccurate, or they were even have negative consequences on ourselves. This is with everything, and that's why we cannot, if we do not put in perspective the reality where we live, if we do not understand ourselves as domesticated animals, that which means that if we do not understand ourselves that our identity is not only the responsibility, how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive the world and everything else is not only a question of choice, it's not only a question of freedom, it's a question of influence, it's a question of manipulation, it's a question of indoctrination and instrumentalization that we all go through, that it happens with all of us, because we are social beings, and social and cultural beings. And culture, that's what defines us. That culture is exactly the process by which we become who we are. That's it. And that's why we cannot, the only way to understand ourselves and our societies and our behavior and everything needs to be through understanding how culture operates, how the ideas, narratives, language framing, cognitive dissonance, logical fallacies, and everything else works, and how it shapes how we perceive the world, how we perceive ourselves, and how we build our relations. It's part of our habits, our behavior, and everything else. We cannot This is um, this is so. I mean, my point is that we are not supposed to operate the pursuit of self-interest. We can do it, we do it, we can adapt to it, we can build all our lives, all the purpose of our life around this principle. Okay? Because we are able to do it. Again, because of what I said. Neuroplasticity, behavioral plasticity, and cultural adaptability. So we can do it. But just because we can do it, it doesn't mean it is natural. Or it doesn't mean that it defines the human condition. Because we can really build systems, economic systems, societal systems, and political systems, and civilizations against the essence of the human condition. And we do it. And why? The reason why we do it is because there are flaws. That's because it's our flaws on our understanding. It's because it is easy to use logical fallacies. It is used to manipulate human perception, and those who understand it and have sociopathic or psychopathic and they're narcissistic, they are maniacal, and they don't have really and they have agendas and objectives. They don't care what they will use. The language framing and all the strategies to manipulate others, and then step by step, brick by brick, we can build systems that are not in our interest, in the interest of the common human being. But we can do it. Of course we can do it. And we have been. That's the purpose. That's one of the main purposes of my of whatever you're gonna call these monologues. I don't know, whatever. It's the purpose of understanding this. That we have this natural flaw, that is a cultural flaw, that makes us easily manipulated by others, because we are built. It is part. That is part of the human condition. Trust is one of the bonds of a social species that depends on each other to survive. So trust is not a luxury, but trust unfortunately can be used as part of the manipulative process that transforms us into tools in other people's hands, and usually exactly in people that do not have that lack the social feelings, that lack the ability to feel empathy and compassion for others. So therefore they can be pretty smart, but since they lack these two main features of a social species, they don't mind to use others in order to build because they are driven by power and control and wealth accumulation and glory and whatever. And this is how these are usually the people that drive humanity, that drive communities, entire communities, nations and countries into wars, into oppression, into repression, into exploitation, into plunder and everything else. Because they do it not for the common good. They don't do it to defend democracy. It's not about individual freedoms. We can only enjoy true individual freedoms if our culture is a culture based on the common good. We cannot feel threatened. We cannot compete with others in the basis that we compete for cramps. Okay? That we are not competing truly to achieve anything, to have a better life, but we are just competing for crumbs with each other. You know, like when you are afraid that an immigrant is going to take your job and things like that, that is stupid. The immigrant and you belong to the same social condition or social class or caste. Okay? It is a stupid idea. And that's why so many people don't understand that they are. And this is one thing I want to say clear. There is a right-wing wokeism, okay? And people should also understand it. Not only criticize the left-wing wokeism, which do exist for sure. We cannot only be against the old structures and order, economic order, international order, institutions, organizations. It doesn't, you know, because I mean, sound bites and also conspiracy theories, because they do exist. It's not because conspiracies don't exist. They have existed since I mean, for a long time. The thing is, being against something, it's not enough to change the reality. It's not enough to change the system itself. We need to be serious. We need to be serious about and we cannot build a new system or think about a new system just in opposition to the old system. This is exactly what we have in politics, that don't change anything. We don't need necessarily to build a system that is the opposite, that is in the antipodes of the existing system. What we need to think in a serious manner is what kind of society do fit the human, do serve the human needs in a sustained way. What kind of economy and political system and social and cultural system does serve the purpose of satisfying the human needs, and through a culture of liberation, through a culture that truly enhances and implements the ability for us as individual beings to truly enjoy individual freedoms, and especially to use the time of our lives in doing what really makes sense to us, but not only by being influenced by others or by whatever is fashionable or not, but by through a process of understanding, of having a deep understanding of ourselves and how we change over time, and all the things that are even with our contradictions and everything else, that's normal, that's part of life, and needs to be part of the equation as well. A culture needs to be for sure based on doing as less harm as possible to other human beings, to other living creatures, to life and nature in general. So our economic system and our political system needs to reflect it. And so we cannot have these things need to operate in a holistic way, not in a schizophrenic way. I talk about the need for an ecological, holistic civilization with a social and ecological political economy, because it seems to me, I always say that the economy needs to be an economy of sufficiency and reciprocity. That's the principles to me. That is required to have a humane and humanized economy, and the political system needs to fulfill that economy, to make it work, to make it functional, as well as the cultural system and society itself. And this is, to me, the umbrella idea that I think that should be the working that should be used as a reflection, as a group reflection, as a part of the process of looking for solutions, because I truly believe that the ecological civilization that some people talk about, even people in the eco-socialist mindset, let's put it this way, I don't know if they really think about if they have the holistic understanding of it. I mean, I think we do need to reflect together. I mean, because again, the prevalent mentality, which is the mentality that it's the pursuit of self-interest, and this is the academic work is an example, is a living example of that. People write books, people write to be recognized. But again, I always emphasize, and I want to emphasize it again, it's not about people. We should not make it about people. Not because people do not deserve to be admired and respected. It's not the case. It's because it's about ideas. And when I have an idea, or somebody else has an idea, usually that idea is incomplete. and that requires the inputs of other people to make it better. Because the idea, the individual mind, it can be very genial. We can come with really eureka moments at the individual level, but that doesn't mean that we should engage in the glorification of the individual, because this is part of the problem, not part of the solution. Because the glorification of the individual is what makes us always expecting leaders or saviors or heroes to come to the front, to really do what should be the common work. The common work, the common good demands common responsibility, as well as demands common individual agency. And that needs to be part of the equation. We cannot expect, I do respect a lot of people, many of them academics, I learn a lot with them, but would never, but it's not about them individually. The ideas, if we really want change, is not about expecting that someone, or even a single group, or a single set of ideas is enough to change the world, to change the existing order, this imperialistic, this civilizational imperialistic paradigm that is paralyzing us. Even those who really want real change and oppose imperialism and capitalism and the class or caste-based society. Because we always repeat the same mistakes, which is we are always talking about people, this man, that, those, blah, 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 blah. I don't want us to ignore them. But we cannot, there are more and more people, more and more people writing, more and more people with good ideas. We cannot refer all of them, we cannot know all of them. So what matters is that we use the ideas to make the change. Because if it's about that we want to be recognized as the fathers of something, as the mothers of something, we are reproducing the one of the pillars of a societal system that is based on the exceptions that are supposed to provide to be the example of the norm, and that should be definitely challenged and overruled. We don't need we learn with each other. We all are bits and pieces of other people, knowledge and experience. This is exactly what we are as domesticated animals. We are social alien animals. This conscious individuality should never become the excuse to negate, to deny our true identity, our true condition, which is profoundly social. And it is, I'm against collectivism as well as I'm against individualism, because this is not about either or. The common good, the collective good, it's not collectivism. And that's why we need to be, as well as the individual, the pursuit of self-interest does not function in the interest of the most individuals, as individuals and collectively. So this is why we need to work on all these assumptions that are at least flawed. In some cases, they just represent a distortion of the human condition, and just on our adaptability and plasticity makes us comply with it and even believe that's who we are. And this is not a question of how sophisticated and culturally, intellectually, scientifically, and technologically we are sophisticated, because it doesn't matter. The belief systems, the narratives, how the subconscious identity is built is the same. The process is the same as it has been always. And what we need is just to become conscious of this process, of how we so easily can be so easily manipulated. It doesn't matter how sophisticated we are. We can always, because it is very difficult for us to build a complex system analysis, critical analysis is not easy. To build a holistic, comprehensive approach of reality is not easy. We need to train it. We cannot think that we just understand it with a flip of a switch, because it doesn't work like that. That's why it requires a process of conscious transformation, because it goes against. We need to really swim against the stream, the mainstream, the legacy culture, the legacy civilization, the legacy political worldviews, and is the same about the economy. Wrong. It's not even inaccurate principles and models. They are not only flawed, they are intentionally wrong to serve the purpose of keeping this hierarchical system, to keep the people at the top, to be the ones that profit with the existing system. For those that eventually bother to listen to my monologues, they might have the feeling that I sound like a broken record. But I'm going to emphasize that without repetition and mimicry, we don't learn. Learning is not a spontaneous process. We can learn certain things we can be intuitive, and we can have spontaneous moments of discernment, but the reality of how we acquire knowledge since young age is by mimicking and repetition. That's how we learn our native language. That's how we learn habits and rules and taste and the norms and everything else. And this process, when we become older, I mean, since we maybe in our teens, but especially during our adult mature age, it is either we practice ourselves the repetition and the mimicry is done consciously, which means that we select what we want to be exposed to in a daily basis, from what kind of TV programs or what kind of books of experiences or people or relations do organizations and groups and everything else, from work responsibilities to our leisure time. Well, how do we use it, and what's the purpose of it, what's the meaning of it? Either we do it consciously, not only based on the pursuit of self-interest or just for a quick adrenaline rush or whatever, but with purpose and meaning. What are we building out of ourselves? Okay, because either we do it by a conscious process of repetition and mimicry, and then we build ourselves the way we really want us to become, what we want to become, or we will be built according to what the repetition, and we be conditioned, our behavior and our minds will be conditioned and shaped by being exposed repetitively and by mimicking ideas and thoughts and behaviors and acquiring habits that are brought to us by others, by those who want to exploit our weaknesses. They want to prey on us. They want to commodify us. And that's what happens with most of us. And we don't recognize it. We even deny it. But that doesn't matter. Whether we admit it or not is irrelevant. That's how the reality works. That's how a domesticated animal functions. And either we learn it and do something about it, or we might think that we are the most free individual in the world, and nevertheless we are being manipulated, because we all are manipulated to a certain extent. The thing is, the more aware you are of it, the more you train yourself to become more resilient and to more immune to it, the less you become, the less susceptible you become. It's not just by thinking that you are not manipulated, just that you have that belief that you are not. That's not how we work as social beings. There are lots of influences in my understanding of the human condition, for sure, because that's how the reality that I expose myself to many different to different theories and explanations and justifications and scientific knowledge and pseudoscientific knowledge, and I mean, we all, I think this is the experience of all human beings throughout our lives, and the important what needs to be done by us, as I see it, is a process of a selection of principles, of rules, of norms, and I mean of what we think, of concepts and ideas that we think truly help us to understand us in real context, in real social context, in real experiences, not only at the theoretical level, on the abstract level, which means that we need to build our, not just by mimic, by being a echo machine, by echoing others. Okay, but we need to build, that's part of the process of liberation, of self-liberation, to build our own understanding. Not just, it cannot only be fictional, of course, because then it's worthless. But it needs to be rooted on real life and experience. Many times, very often, we trust too much in academic and scientific work, which is important, no doubts about that, but if we do not do our own work, and if the academic and scientific, so-called academic and scientific work, which sometimes it's not really good, okay, and it doesn't help us to understand ourselves, because we need to understand that science and academy and research is not there are economic interests, there are corporative interests, there are so many things going on there, and there are also ideological, again, because scientists and academics are also domesticated animals, just like the rest of us. Should not see them as different, because they are not. I mean, it's common sense and the observation of real life in the context of real life, real relations, and with the help of structural concepts. Okay, there are structural concepts and principles that are important for us to use as intellectual tools to build sound knowledge, but knowledge built by ourselves with the help of others, of course, with the bits and pieces, as I say frequently, of other people knowledge and experience. So this is important, and we can sometimes find an understanding, and even a comprehensive understanding of ourselves, the reality, the human condition, that you cannot find in academic books. Okay? That's why it doesn't mean that you don't need the scientific research, or there is no knowledge that is important for us to have that understanding. But sometimes that knowledge is ideologically distorted, or distorted by interests, economic interests and other interests that might not be obvious. And so we cannot, that's the same with economics. A neoclassical economics is just is just a bunch of lies and the wrong models, and nevertheless they are supposed to be the default economic theories to which that are taught in all main business and economic schools and colleges. Okay, so so we cannot. There we need to build our conscious, to build our psycho called sociocultural identity. We need to learn how to be more, not only skeptical, but he is more active. We have more agency. We train ourselves to work with the knowledge that are provided by others, to build our own knowledge as part of the conscious transformative process that should be based on to be factual as much as it is humanly possible. But the active work done by us is exactly the one that matters most, because it means that there is too much followerism, conscious or mostly inadvertently, we just are led to become followers. We talk a lot, again, I'm going back to the same thing. We talk a lot about freedom and democracy and freedom of thought, freedom of speech, and the freedom of this and freedom of that. But that freedom, that individual freedom, requires a conscious process of the building the knowledge basis that we use, the knowledge platform, to build. What kind of narratives do we allow, or do we train ourselves by repetition and mimicry to become the ones that define our identity, that define who we are and how we behave? That is important, in my opinion, if we want really, if really freedom and cultural liberation is important for us. We need to have clear thoughts and about what I'm talking about, my line of thoughts. The point is, We take so many things for granted, or as granted. I don't know exactly which one is better. Without giving it, without putting it through the sieve of a conscious process of critical analysis. Because we are not the main culture is just to keep us distracted. We are not supposed to become to use introspection, a critical analysis, an analytic introspection. Or we just if we have problems of psychology or difficulties at the psychological level or the psychoaffective level, we are supposed to look for professionals, which is important. But those professionals sometimes they are technicians, and what I do mean by that, they operate by the rules. They lack the freedom themselves to operate more at the human level, and they operate more at the technical level, which they apply the knowledge they learned sometimes critically, because they want to be professionals, and that's why this is exactly what people need to understand. That in whatever we think about our technical and scientific knowledge that we acquire, that in this case the many professionals acquire during their student life, they need to humanize it. They need to have a critical, analytical mind. If they want to be only good professionals and to use their technical and scientific skills and to use a metric. These days everything is about a metric. You measure everything, you know. One of the reasons that psychiatry is so is very dangerous, actually, it's because it just erases the social and cultural and economic and political roots of the problems. As if people, as individuals, are not influenced at all by their environment. As deep social creatures that want to be accepted, that want to be loved, that want to be part of the society, that struggle with relations, with human relations, at the workplace, family relations, marital relations. I mean, and those difficulties and those problems, as if they are not social, as if they are individual, as if they are problems that only happen they are individual problems. They are individualized problems. In the case of psychiatry, they should identify. They relate it with chemical imbalances, and these are supposed to be accepted as truth, as science, as reliable, when in fact is in many cases to sell pharmaceuticals. It's too. It means that the economic purpose and the purpose to make people fit to a sick society, to a sick system, is not to cure the person, is to transform the person into a functional tool, not a functional human being, not a humanized human being. And this is across all sciences, humanistic sciences, economic science, political science, art sciences, at every level, at every specialty, we see these principles because they are accepted as the default principles, because the people, the experts, the authorities, the careerists, they are not supposed to challenge the system, to question that there is something else that can be wrong, that our approach, the way we frame, that the way the reality is framed and the way the problems are framed, it might be crooked, twisted, it might not be correct, it's not only flawed, it might be a lie. But since all of us are supposed to operate in the pursuit of our self-interest, which means our careers, our economic and financial well-being, our professional and social success, we just give it a blind eye. We look aside, we ignore, we omit, we deny, we divert. And what we do by doing that, we just allow the problems to become bigger and more difficult to solve. Because more people are involved, more interests, higher interests, the more the rigged the system is, and the more unequal society is, the worse it becomes to solve. And without a conscious, transformative process, cultural, ideological, and at the level of we questioning our deep assumptions and convictions and beliefs, we are not able to do it. Because again, the interests will always surface, will always make us interrupt our reflections. We'll think about what are we going to lose, because in a commodified society and as commodified beings, as our lives are commodified, we frame everything within these parameters, and then we deny the rest when we are criticized or when we are faced with opposition that makes sense, but we don't want to see the sense of it. We want to deny it to ourselves, because most of the time when we try to deny, to make it sound, to make the opposition sound crazy, or or conspiratory or whatever, many times we are denying ourselves to see the truth, because we want to live this comfortable illusion, and it's not an illusion in reality, because there are real benefits. Okay, it's an illusion to a certain extent, but it's an illusion based on real benefits. And this is the kind of trap that we, and by we I always mean most of us, the ones that really struggle to survive, or even if we don't struggle, we don't have really. It's that we could have much better lives, enjoy more free time, have less worries, have more meaningful lives, use the time of our lives in a much better way. And that can only be done in a society where the common good really matters. You know, that cannot, that there is no other way. Otherwise, as I said before, we are always in the mode of competing with each other for crumbs. Because, again, the system, we live in a system of manufactured scarcity. It is not natural scarcity, it's manufactured scarcity. This is a concept that we need really to understand. So, this is I'm going to end it, to wrap it up here. Thank you for listening. I will be back soon, and of course this is the themes I tried to to give some thoughts today, and I will be back to them because it's part of it's important, in my opinion, at least. Okay, thanks for listening. I will be back soon.